Welcome to POSTCAST as the Utah Jazz fall to the NBA champion Miami Heat, 105-89. David Locke along with Ron Boone. And I guess the first thing I would just say on tonight's ballgame is if you have a chance, Miami comes to town January 14th. LeBron in person, 30 points tonight, 9 rebounds, 7 assists. We talked about pregame. He really may turn out to be the best player in the history of this league. And more so than probably any other player I've ever seen, you really have got to see him in person to fully grasp the size, the speed, and the magnitude of this man.
He has everything you would want in a basketball player, and and that includes the stride to be one of the best ever. And I think when guys have that, and we talk about how the great players, how the game slows down for them, the hoop looks big. I mean, there's nothing they don't feel like they can't do out there on the floor. He is definitely in that mode right now, where he is just unstoppable.
The thing that's so special about those players is their ability in this grind of 100-plus games that they know they're going to play. I mean, he's playing this game tonight and kind of knows it's irrelevant. I mean, they got to get a win, but the seeding kind of matters, but they're going to win enough games, and they're that good in the East. And yet he still came out with a fire tonight and a commitment and really was in control single-handedly of this game. Wade played very well also, but LeBron was in if you brought your mom to this game, I'm using my mom as an example, I'm not being sexist, who had never seen an NBA game in her life, and I said, tell me who the best player is, she would have known in a minute, and she would have never quivered on her thought of who that was.
Think about a guy that's in his 10th year in the league. I mean, some guys are on that downward spiral. You get the feeling with him, he's still going up. He's still elevating. His game is still getting better. I mean, he's become a better shooter. Something like what Karl Malone did throughout his tenure as an NBA player. He's making clutch free throws. I mean, every negative that was thrown at him, whether it was in the media or the things that he put on himself, he's gotten better at. He's played every position on the floor, a la and vintage Magic Johnson. So he's doing so many of the things that some of the great players ahead of him has done already, and he's right there. I mean, what else can you say about it?
It's really fabulous. All right, let's talk about the Jazz. So often we talk about defense, but I'm going to start talking about the offense. Coming into this game, 3 of the previous 4 games were 3 of the 4 worst offensive games of the year, and I think tonight's going to fit into that. I don't know where, but I think it's fair to guess that the Jazz 4 worst defensive games of the season have happened inside the last 5 games. What has happened to this team offensively? Now, they played Memphis, who's good. They played some good teams, but it doesn't matter. You still got to be better than they are right now.
2 things. One is that we are not, whatever game plan Coach Corbin is putting this team in and what he wants them to do, I just don't feel like they're getting it done. I feel like they're surrendering to let's use Memphis and Indiana. The perimeter pressure, they're surrendered to that. I thought they surrendered tonight to fighting for that low box down there and Al Jefferson being fronted and not being able to exploit that. I mean, you have to fight for those things. Not just and I know you and I talked about it at the beginning of the year. Well, this team had the same fight that last year's team had, and right now I do not see it, Dave.
Well, I mean, you're the one who was very astute and brought that up early. It's like, hey, I don't care about talent. Last year's team was defined by fight. Yep. I'll give you another one in the postseason research that I did. Al Jefferson's numbers were dramatically different against above 500 teams versus below 500 teams. Against below 500 teams, he really killed them. Against above 500 teams, he was pretty mediocre last year. Right now, this team seems to have reverted back to being completely dependent on Al Jefferson. In the last 15 games, all except for one, when he shoots below 500, the team loses, and when he shoots above 500, the team wins. Do they have a choice but to be that dependent on him, and can they avoid it?
They can avoid it, and David, it's all rides on, and we saw what Jamal Tinsley did when he came in the ballgame. He pushed the ball up the floor. He was trying to distribute the basketball. I think that falls on Mo Williams. Mo has to push the basketball up the floor, and everyone else would run with him. And then that's when the ball moves, because you get the team in a scramble, and you're going to get those uncontested shots. Right now, as you mentioned, bringing it down and just throwing it in the big Al, and there's no movement there at all. I think that this team is best at running. in transition. This is not, John Stockton and Karl Malone's not out there on the floor right now. And this is not a very good half-court team.
Well, the crazy thing, and I don't know if it's just a Band-Aid on a situation that's precarious or if it actually is something that can propel this team. A win tomorrow in Orlando, and this team goes 500 on this road trip, ends up above 500 after playing 19 of their first, is that right? Is that 16, 17, 18 of their first 29 games on the road. They'd be above 500, and you're right in position to make the playoffs again and kind of move forward. I will not lie. I have a little bit of a feeling that's just a Band-Aid over something that's just not quite right because they're just not playing very well. But you know what? Sometimes those Band-Aids, things heal under those Band-Aids, and you're able to roll.
And I agree with you. I know we're picking on the Jazz because they're not doing certain things out there for, but they played the Miami Heat tonight.
Yes.
This team has only lost 2 ball games here in this arena. They're the best in the NBA. Well, maybe Oklahoma City. I mean, that remains to be seen. And this is a very good basketball team. So you get beat by a very good basketball team, but we've seen some.
The signs aren't good, but sometimes momentum. Ty just talks about momentum swings.
Right.
A win against Orlando, you go home 2-2. You then suddenly have a nice long home stretch, and you've got some really important games. Hey, let's go back up a month. We said when this stretch started you were going to know an awful lot about this team, and we're learning an awful lot about this team. You're playing some of the best teams in the NBA. You've got the Warriors who are red hot, followed by back-to-back games with the Clippers. You're going to know a lot about this team by January 1, and we're learning right now, and they've got a few more tests to be able to show what they're capable of.
Well, you hit it on the head. The Jazz's 17th road game of the year, and so being able to withstand that going into January, we've only lost the Jazz. Lost 2 games at home as well, just like Miami Heat. So
we're gonna here's the bottom line. We're gonna figure out the losses are not so bad. How they're losing doesn't feel good, and we'll see whether that is a non-indicator or whether or not because they haven't losing. You're not supposed to win this one. You're probably not gonna win in Indiana. You probably got to go try to get the one in Orlando. You got it. Winning in Brooklyn was a nice surprise. It just doesn't. Something's not clicking the way we're used to seeing Jazz basketball. We'll see whether that's just a night or an indicator over time. That's the beauty of the season. On behalf of Ron Boone, I'm David Locke. Jazz holiday ticket packages available at UtahJazz.com.